Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another chapter of Aeternium Gate. I am your host and GM, Eric Taylor, and I hope everybody's doing well this evening and that you can hear me, because it would be great if for one time we didn't have audio issues. But the next test of audio issues will be if you can hear Chantel.
Hello? Yay.
We can hear Chantel.
I'm
Sometimes.
audible.
But they don't sponsor us. But they could, if you would like
They
to.
could.
Send me an email.
Oh, man. Yeah, do it.
We'll give
Look,
you a
we're in a
long
book and
ad
everything.
at the beginning. I know. It's real good. And we have good sound quality, like all of their recordings. Anyway, this is not an Audible sponsored stream. However, it is a DoRespite stream, which means we would really, really, really like if you would go and check out patreon.com/DoRespite. The link is in the chat. If you would go there, it supports us a lot. We're pushing toward being able to afford really nice mics for the one remaining member of the cast who doesn't have one. Looks at Frito. And we would like to start moving toward being able to do a podcast version of the show. So that is one of the goals on the Patreon, as well as the fact that this is just my job. So if you want to throw a coin to your local Eric, that would be nice. Anyway, hey, don't mock me. It's been a rough day. It's Wednesday, so we're playing Aeternium Gate. On Saturday this week, we're off because we just ended Somerset City. But as you saw in the ads rolling before the stream, we have two new things coming on Saturdays. One of them this Saturday, which is at 8 a.m. You can find Unlawful Disorder. They live here now. We got them. They're wonderful people, and they're now playing Open Legend. And that will be Jamie and Chantel and Sam and Drew and Michelle is GMing. So come watch them at 8 a.m. Eastern here. And then not this Saturday, but the next, we will be starting a sci-fi game, a kind of science fantasy-esque game called Far From Home, where Earth is having issues and a great project will be making people leave. And so that's kind of a big, huge exodus is going on. So what happens when you have to leave Earth and go find a new home? That's what you'll find out. So that's enough out of me. We already heard from Chantel. She's good and she's audible. How are you, Frida?
I'm also good.
And also audible.
And we'll be doing some shopping in the near future because...
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, it's fine.
We've picked the one we want, so I'll send you a link.
Deal.
Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing good. Today was a lovely day.
I am glad. Today was a very hot day here. You know where it's not hot, really? Although it's really not cold either, unless you ask them. It's Australia, and that's where Jamie lives. How are you, Jamie?
It's very cold here. I resent that remark. It's like single-digit Celsius.
Yeah, I live in a state whose motto is the greatest snow on Earth.
Oh,
so
yeah, well, it's apparently meant to snow here this week, so you know that's cold. I've never lived in a city that snows before, so that's something for me.
Oh, that's such a treat.
Yeah. I remember there being sleet on the road once in Sydney. There was never snow.
We had like
I'm
4
good.
snow days
I've
for
been...
my kids last year.
Oh wow.
So much.
We had the opposite. We have Sundays where like it gets
I do
over
too.
40.
They're on the calendar before every Monday.
I think it has to get over like 42 degrees Celsius, which is I think 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's like
and then they send people
120.
That's
Yeah,
no.
Yeah,
That's
they send
gross.
kids home from school at that point.
That's because they'll melt and like their shoes will stick to the concrete. Like that's a terrible idea.
I remember going to school on those like days where like they weren't sure if it would tick over, and it was just like 40 degrees and everyone was dead. It was just the worst.
No. That sounds gross. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. So, anyway, last time we played Eternium Gates. Sage had a poop party. You guys joined a caravan. Cobalt one-hit killed a lurker, which like made him a legend to a bunch of traveling people. You learned that it had been like 100 years since you left, which was really disconcerting. 200 years. I don't remember.
Yeah,
You know how many games I
200
run?
years.
A lot of games. My book is also not here. This one that I have in front of me says Paddington Prowler on it, which will not give me the correct notes. So I grabbed the wrong one off the shelf in the other room. So we're just going to have to go with it.
Oh, that means we get all the secrets.
You get to take your headphones off, and we get to have secrets.
Just give you secrets. Yep. But you guys made your way to Einapoth. And once you arrived in Einapoth, you left the caravan. You made your way to an inn, and as you did, you are pretty sure you saw an elf with an orange crystal glaive entering a bar. And that is where we find you. Is in a crowded Einapothian street, looking up at a bar that, as you look up, has, one of those swingy signs that's genre required to be there. And this one, as it turns out, is very ornately cast, not carved. The pattern was pretty ornate, but it was cast out of brass in the shape of a raging boar with a spear sticking out of its neck.
Sage, Belmir. I think I saw Peregrine.
Sage is inside. Sage does not look at signs.
And just like look down at Belmir. Well, we can't let her go alone.
Especially not after last time that she ran off by herself.
She's quick.
She is very quick.
Yes.
To the bar.
Okay, so you guys enter the bar, and you find Sage kind of doing that, like, in the Beauty and the Beast animated movie Gaston, where, not Gaston, Beauty and the Beast, but in the opening song in Provincial Life, where Gaston is trying to shove his way through the crowd in the crowded market square to get after Belle repeatedly. You're literally seeing Sage being like, excuse me, pardon me, kind of a thing, except she's doing it in a very Sage manner, which means probably not actually being mannered at all, but just trying to push her way through.
No, get out of my way.
Yep.
Get out of my way. Excuse me. Excuse me. Get out of my way.
Yep. Trying to essentially swim her way through a sea of people in this crowded bar.
How are people reacting to seeing a Tyranny?
Most of them are kind of just like, you're noticing Sage is like making like 3 steps forward, but then like 5 steps back and hasn't actually made it substantially further into the bar. And they seem to largely be ignoring her. And you hear a lot of like cheering and shouting. And to the trained ear of Cobalt, you definitely hear the sounds of combat.
Sage, be careful. I hear fighting.
I'm trying to get to Peregrine.
Just be careful.
Okay. Sage will try to carefully crawl through legs.
Okay. Yeah, let's do this. This will be fun. Let's roll dice 12 minutes into a Do Respite stream.
It's too soon.
I know.
It's too soon.
Unfortunately, whenever we roll dice this early, someone dies.
Oh no.
But Sage has died like 3 times, so she's fine.
Yeah.
She'll come back. That's how death works.
That was 2. Exactly. That's how death works. All right. So, what we're going to do here, I am going to roll 4 dice. And yes, those of you who are going to send me emails, please know I'm not currently checking them. But hey, I don't care if this isn't how Savage Worlds work. I'm the GM. I'm going to roll 4 dice. These 4 d10s. You are going to make an agility roll. And for every roll that you successfully beat, that is 1 person who doesn't step on you. For every roll you fail to beat, that is 1 person who does step on you. I have good news. None of them exploded.
Best one is a 3.
Oh, you're only making 1 roll here. So if you'd like to
Oh.
stand on a 3, then we'll
No.
find out how many people step on you. Or you can throw some bennies.
I would like to throw 1 Benny, please.
I accept your Benny.
While Chantel is re-rolling, I tried to explain the concept of exploding dice to a friend of mine this week, and they thought we were playing with dice that literally exploded.
I would like this. But
I
those
would
were
not.
2 3s.
Sounds
I'm
dangerous.
going to spend another Benny this early on. But I start with 4, so it's fine.
That is fine. For you.
This time I rolled a 4 and I'm going to stick with it.
All right. Well, the first person rolled a 2. So Sage is crawling under, and there's like some vast cheering, and then Sage nimbly manages to not get stepped on. Next person rolls a 3. So again, barely manages to not get stepped on. The next person rolls a 6. So that person, in fact, does step on Sage. And then the next person rolled a 9. So they also step on Sage. So the way I have decided to do this is it was going to be for every raise over your number total, you are going to take a fatigue. So you sustain 1 fatigue in this getting trampledness as you pop out on the other side and are now kind of standing there, a group of people kind of in a circle. And as you look, the only reason you actually stop is because you butt into a railing. And in this bar, there is a lowered down floor, and there's a railing around it. And down in the base, there's a sand pit. And there are 2 people down in the sand pit fighting with each other. And there's lots of cheering, and there you see there's a big platform, and there is a short little man sitting on top of it, and he's shouting, but you can't really hear him, but he's shouting something about what's going on down the pit, and he's like directly across the pit from you.
The 2 people who stepped on Sage suddenly find them unable to step on people as I lift them both up by their shirts and say, "Watch where you put your feet," and throw them aside.
Okay. All right.
Can I see Peregrine?
Give me a notice roll. Remembering that a fatigue adds a -1 to everything you do.
Six.
Okay. You see no... Excuse me. I choked on coconut. You see no elf with a orange glaive. See a lot of elves, just not that one.
Peregrine!
Yeah, your noise is
Yelling
very
into
much
the
drowned
void.
out by all of the shouting. Flora and Belmere, what are you guys doing as Cobalt escorts Sage sort of through to the center and finds the pit.
I'm gonna try and skirt around the crowd to get to the barkeep, see if I can find the owner, someone that's working.
Oh yeah, you can get to. There's like there's like a few armed men, and they're sort of keeping a distance around the bar so people can come in and safely order drinks and then go back into the cacophony. Because the bar's got to make money, right? So.
Flores get tag along after Belmere.
Okay. There is a grizzled-looking man behind the bar. He's sporting a head that has been shaved, and he has 3 thin lines of hair, so like a trihawk down his head. And the trihawk stands up probably a good 6-8 inches from his hairline, from his scalp. He is clad in heavy black enameled chain armor, and has kind of a spiked pauldron on one shoulder. And he turns and looks at you. What?
Can I get some?
No drinks
Ale.
for you. And he turns and looks at somebody else, and somebody like leans up and he taps you on the shoulder. And there's a young lady standing there, and she's a human young lady dressed in a very simple peasant dress. Are you new here?
Yeah, we just got into town.
Yeah, Talek, you gotta watch. And she steps up to the bar and he turns, what? Beer? Cool. Mug. And he like nods and he fills a mug and slides it to her. And she puts the money down. And he turns back. He's very particular about the ordering process.
I can see that.
But tell him what you want. Tell him what temperature. Tell him what vessel you want it in. That's it. Then you leave the money on the counter.
I will say beer, cold mug.
Okay, so he nods. You set the money down. He fills the beer, hands it to you, turns away. I'm Ina, by the way. Not Ina, by the way. I'm Ina Johansson. All by the way. By the way is not my name.
Good to know. Ina, have you seen an elf around here with an orange glaive on her back?
No. I've heard about an elf that carries one of those kind of outlandish sort of weapons, but I've never met her. There's a little bit of a legend around here.
Okay.
Where,
Do you have anyone that you're cheering on in this fight?
yeah, Reknar's up next, and he tends to win. Mostly this is one of those, and she like leans back against the bar and takes a big swig from her drink. And you can tell she's just desperate to talk to somebody, right? And the fact that Belmere is paying her any attention is super cool to her. Yeah, Reknar's great, but these guys are more or less fighting for the opportunity to fight him. It's a little bit barbaric, but I mean,
I mean, Reknar always wins.
He's lost like twice, ever, in like a decade. It's not very often that it's to the death, though. And he's never lost one of those.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. Why? You don't look like the kind who would enter.
Oh, me, no.
You have that
I'm-
like scholarly thing going on.
True. But me and my companion has just gotten to town and we're just trying to. We thought we saw someone that we knew, but we can't find her. So
Oh. You know the Crystal Glaive?
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
assuming it's the person that we think it is, yeah, we know Peregrine.
Oh, I don't know her name.
Oh.
She just goes by the Crystal Glaive around here. She's like, and she turns and like taps the mug and drops some more coins, and the man that you know is named Talok fills it again and hands it back to her. And it's a little bit impressive that she's drained that mug of beer that quickly while also talking. You're starting to be convinced maybe she drinks and speaks at the same time. It's sort of scary. But she looks at Belmer and she just like appeared like 15 years ago, 20 years ago from what I'm told. Nobody's really talked to her, but she keeps the roads up into the mining towns pretty clear from what I'm told. So what about you? Why are you here? Where are you from? We don't get to meet many scholarly dwarves.
Well, my friends and I were.
Oh, how many friends did you come with? Is that one? And she like points at Flora.
It's Flora.
Hi, Flora.
met
I'm
her.
Ina, by the way, but not by the way.
Yes,
Johansson.
I got that part last time. It's a very nice name.
Thanks. I like the name Flora.
Thank you. Belmer, I'm gonna give it a try. And Flora walks up to the bar. Sarsaparilla, cool. Mug.
And he like picks up the coins and he turns and he's like, "You!" And he points at one of the like serving boys. Sarsaparilla, go. What? Go. And like the boy turns and like sullenly walks out of the bar. And he turns and he's like, "It'll be a minute."
Okay.
And Ina's like, "Wow. I've never seen anything like, wow. I like you."
Yeah, we're also here with a Tarani and
You're
a
pulling my
Stra.
leg. Tarani don't
No.
exist. They're not real. And Sthra are evil.
Not all of them. Our friend Cobalt isn't.
That's a weird name.
It matches his scales. They're blue.
I've never seen a blue Tarani. All the Tarani that attack us are yellow.
The Tarani are yellow? I thought the Straw were yellow.
That's what I mean. Sorry.
Oh.
This is like my 8th beer.
Really
Oh, I
confused for a second.
I think maybe you should slow down on the beers. Have you tried sarsaparilla? It's really good.
It's also really rare.
Really?
That's why they don't carry it here. Yeah. Like the roots that are used in it, they have like medical properties. And they don't
I
really
didn't-
grow around here.
It used to be that rare to Actually, I'm not quite sure how long ago. A very long time ago.
You're a weird lady.
Thank you.
And
Elmer makes note that he needs to have a conversation with Flora later about where she's been and where she came from.
and down in the ring, you hear, like, as you're staying there, you hear this loud cheer go up through the crowd. And you hear just this really loud amplified voice start to count. 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you hear this loud bell ringing and the crowd cheers again. And she says, well, looks like they figured out who's going to fight Reknar next. So, can I meet, like, your Tirani and Blue Straw friend? I mean, just so I believe you. Because right now, I admit I mostly don't.
Yeah. And Belmer's going to stand up on the bar stool that he's sitting on and see if he can spot Cobalt amongst the crowd.
Okay, and from behind you, you hear Talok. You break it, you buy it.
Of course.
And you hear the door open and you hear this. And you turn and you see this boy and he's holding a bottle of sarsaparilla and he holds it out to Talok. Talok looks down at the coins and looks up at Flora. He's like, mug, bottle.
Mug?
And he cracks the top off and pours it into a mug. You have nice face. I give discount. And pushes it toward Flora.
Thank you. And she takes it and goes to sit by Belmer.
Okay. You see, like, as standing up, Cobalt is higher than not everyone in the bar, to be honest, because there's a fair amount of orcs in this bar at the moment. But he is taller than most people. And you can see him. He's up near the edge of the railing.
I'm going to yell for Cobalt to come over here.
Okay. I'm going to roll this dice. And
Deal.
if this dice comes up with an even number, it magically, plot appropriately, is quiet enough that he can hear you. If it comes up with an odd number, he does not. 6 is an even number. So, Cobalt, just kind of out of the
Dwarves are loud.
corner of your ear, you hear a very familiar voice be like, Cobalt! Cobalt!
And I look over my shoulder and like hold up a finger, and I look back down. So Sage and I are like right at the railing.
Yeah, right at the
obviously,
railing.
right?
Sage is like intently watching.
And who just won the fight that we were watching?
There is 2 men in there. Sorry, there are 2 people in there. One of them is a elven man who seems to be using some kind of weird combination of like a trident and a net. And then there is a woman who she's rather short and probably human, and she's using just 2 daggers, and she just was faster than he was. And you would guess based on what you saw that she hamstrung him, but you're not 100% positive of that. But she appears to have won. And he's being carted off, and there's some people over to the side, and he's healed, but he gets told it's added to his bar tab.
Yeah.
And she's given a parcel of the bets, and
there's some person who's like in charge, right? Who was making the announcements.
Yep, there is what looks like a gnome standing on a platform.
Is he? Are they down in the arena, or are they like near where we are? Or?
You can get to them. You can get to the guy who's in charge. Like, you'll have to force your way through. He's like a quarter of the way around the circle, but you can get there.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my way over to the gnome.
Okay. Are you taking Sage, or are you leaving her to her own devices, watching the fighting, or the aftermath of the fighting?
Yeah, I think I look down at them and I say, Sage, I want to talk to that gnome. Come with me.
Okay.
Okay. So you are taken with him, and you pull your way through everything, and you are now at the gnome. And he turns, what do you want? Oh, you're big.
And you are small.
Good job. All right, so that's a good note. The guy with the blue scales is baseline observant. Write that down. We can use that in the booking odds. I'll give you 4-1. You versus the little speedy one.
Why do people fight here when there is a war?
Well, I mean, there's not really a war. It's like clandestine black ops crap, man. Like, it's not constant.
And
also, they're not all soldiers. Like,
but they are injuring each other. This is not how fighting should be if it is for sparring.
and he just kind of gives you this weird look, and he's like, look, this is Inapoth, right? Like, things are rough everywhere. But life in the Outer Rings is pretty friggin' dismal, man. So if some of these people get a little of enjoyment out of watching some blood sport, and I can make some coin, who am I to judge?
What do we fight for?
And he like kind of looks at you for a long moment, and he gets kind of this twinkle in his eye for a second. And he's like, you fight for personal glory, and you fight to stabilize your legend.
Yeah, I think their nostrils like flare, and they're like, very well. 4-1. The speedy one, who are the other three?
Oh, yeah. Now we can make that happen. Actually, so we'll do this. We'll go 2-1. And he stands up and he like pulls down this like device and talks into it. Ladies, gentlemen, and other assorted creatures, we have a new challenger. What's your name?
In memoriam for cobalt skies lost forever when blades were drawn.
Right.
His name is Cobalt.
From the left corner, Lizard Man.
Just jump down into the pit.
Left corner. Fighting from the right corner, the Shadow. And you see the girl kind of come back. She's been healed and she's ready to go. And he says, and fighting from the center of the pit, your champion, Rickner! And there's like a wooden platform in the center. Kind of like it looks to Cobalt almost like the sparring ring that divides things out. But there's this clanking sound, and you watch it start to descend. And it descends for a long way, and Flora and Belmir, you're hearing all of this. And the phrase lizard man might be concerning given what they've said about how many Thra exist in this space. But after a few moments, you hear more clanking, and this platform ascends. In the center of this platform is the biggest orc you've ever seen. And he has 4 chains, 2 at his wrists and 2 at his ankles, that are holding him in place to this platform. And sitting on kind of like, one of those like blacksmith's holders, the used stirrups that sits on like the stone thing. There is a massive 2-headed bearded battle axe that's just sitting there. And as it draws up, you see the gnome guy, or you hear the gnome guy, Sage, you see him standing where you are. He snaps. And from positions, there are 4 men who yank on these ropes, and you see the pins on the base of these chains get pulled out from a distance. And the orc starts to twirl his arms, and he's wrapping the chains around his forearm. And he reaches down and picks up the axe, and with a swipe, he severs the chain at one ankle, and with a swipe, he severs the chain at the other ankle. And you notice at this point, he's got one broken off tusk. He's got another that's that long curving. He's that deep kind of gray color that you recognize for mountain orcs. He's got a big scar that runs just crosswise across his face. Several scars all over his completely bare chest. And the only thing besides the loincloth that appears to be made of some kind of fur that he's wearing are those chains that he has wrapped from wrist to forearm. And he turns and he looks at the girl, and he turns and he looks at Cobalt and just kind of nods. And I guess we're going to have a fight now. And Sage, you hear the guy up top start shouting out numbers. I don't know betting odds personally as a person, so I'm not going to actually say numbers, but they're plot appropriate numbers. Plot appropriate betting odds. Definitely in favor of the champion as a thing. And we're going to have a fight, but he turns and there is lowered from the ceiling as the orc is like sitting there kind of flexing his chest in a very WWF wrestler kind of, making his pec bounce as he stares at you and holds the axe. You see tassels lowered down from each corner, one at the center of the ring, the other 2 at the corners where you are. And there's 2 tassels. Sorry, there's 3 tassels. There is a tassel that is a white tassel and it has 3 red stripes on it. There is a tassel that has a single red stripe on it, and then there is a solid red tassel. And from the voice above, you hear, "Choose the match!" And I really hope that's not too loud in people's ears. I have no idea how loud that is.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Who is he yelling that to?
Everybody down in the... there's the tassels are hanging in front of you.
No. Right.
So he's
I have
shouting.
no idea what they mean, though, right?
Yep. No, you have no idea.
I look at the champion and I say, "You are these people's champion, yet they keep you chained. I do not understand this."
And he reaches up and he yanks the fully red tassel from the hanger. And you see the girl's eyes kind of like, you hear, and she reaches up and she pulls the tassel that has the 3 red lines. And she's
what's the third type?
Just a single red line.
Okay. I will pick at random because I have no idea.
Okay.
I picked the first one.
All right. So you pull the one that has the one red line. We have a tie for match type. We leave it to the crowd. And the crowd goes crazy at this. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll some dice. Frito, you're going to roll a d6. Sarah, you're going to roll a d6. And I will roll a d6 for me and a d6 for Shawnee because she's not here. She had to step away. And the way it's going to work is 1 and 2 will be the first one. 3 and 4, the second one. 5 and 6, the third one. And the majority will win. So, roll your d6.
I rolled
Frito.
a 6, so
Uh-huh.
that's the red. Solid red.
Sarah.
I rolled 5, so
And I rolled double sixes.
Cool.
So
Nice knowing you all.
he leans up and he says, "The crowd has spoken.
Oh.
To the death!" And there's another yanked pin, and you see a banner drop. And the banner has just a massive skull on it. And there's a bell, and we're going to draw some cards.
Right.
Cobalt, 8 of clubs. The Shadow draws a 2 of diamonds, but she has quick, so she also draws a 10 of spades. Reknar has quick, so he draws a 4 of spades, which he can't keep. He draws a 2 of clubs, which he can't keep. And he draws the Joker.
Cool.
So, he is going to, with that axe in hand, he's going to charge at the Shadow immediately. And he's going to roll some dice. And he is going to wild attack the Shadow and roll a 10 to hit, which will, in fact, beat her parry with a raise. So he will do some damage. And he's going to do 16 against her toughness right off the bat, which will shake and give her 2 wounds right off the bat. So he takes one look over at Cobalt, and then there's that moment of like, who's he going to charge? Who's he going to charge? And he rushes at the Shadow, and just she kind of lunges backwards, and he feints low, and then with a roll of his shoulder brings the axe up from on high and comes down across her shoulder. So
Cobalt looks incredibly confused.
Oh.
Like that their 2 opponents are fighting against each other.
each other, yeah,
They thought they were meant to be fighting them.
right. And I forgot the Joker bonus, so she's actually shaken with 3.
Does that mean
Exactly.
she's dead? I can't remember.
No,
how
she has
we-
1 more.
Okay, right.
She has 1 more. But she's next. She's got to try and unshake here. And she will roll double 1s, so she can't unshake here. Cobalt, you're up, sir.
Yeah, I yell, "A champion who turns on their allies? What is this place?" And I'm gonna launch myself at the champion
Okay.
and attempt to, like, similarly, after having seen the Shadow hamstring the other guy, I'm gonna try and, like, disable him somehow.
Okay. So called shot.
I guess so. I don't know how cold shots work in
Depends on where you're targeting. It's just a penalty and then.
Oh
additional
yeah,
damage.
right. Yeah, because they have different. Yeah, I'm gonna go for. How is this guy armored? This orc?
He has chains wrapped around his forearms.
Right. And
That's it.
otherwise unarmored, but with a giant axe.
Yep.
And a loincloth. So
And a
He does have a
loincloth. All right,
loincloth.
I'm going for the knees then, I guess.
Okay. So called shot against his limb is going to be at a -2 penalty.
Okay. I'm gonna roll my fighting.
But
Mhm.
before you get there, he has first strike
Sure.
and is going to hit you or swing at you when you get within
Okay.
range.
Yeah. So I like slide in towards him through the sand with my shield raised, and yeah, it's ready to
15
try.
versus your parry.
My parry is 9.
Okay, so that will hit with a raise.
Uh-huh.
$19 versus toughness.
My toughness is 9. Yes, 9.
Okay,
Also.
so shaken with 2. So becoming shaken on the interrupt means that you lose your action upon arrival. So essentially, you go to slide in, you go to raise, and like as you move your shield out of the way for that slash, you're greeted by the axe to your chestish region.
Mm-hmm.
And that moves us to the new round.
While this is happening, I lean over to Ina and say, "Oh, what happens if someone else jumps in the ring?"
And she looks at you just like, don't do it. And she kind of points, and you see 4 archers like positioned at points around the room. And she's like, you might not make it to the floor. Okay.
No one has told Sage this. I'm just saying.
I know.
So you're ringside. We're over the bar.
New round. Cobalt, Jack of Hearts. Shadow has quick. 3 of diamonds, can't keep. 3 of clubs, can't keep. Ace of clubs. So ace of clubs. Reknar, 3 of spades, can't keep because of quick. 4 of clubs, can't keep. King of spades. So Shadow goes first. Needs to unshake and will fail because of 3 wounds. Because -3 penalty to everything she does, including unshake. And I made the decision at the start of this combat that I was not going to spend any GM bennies for this fight because it doesn't matter from a plot perspective. Okay, so, well, unless Cobalt dies. But then it matters. Reknar will get to go first. He is going to sweep and try and hit both people, which is -2 to the attack rolls. He is going to get a 23 to hit the Shadow, and he is going to get a 7 to hit Cobalt's parry.
No, I have a parry of 9.
Okay, so he does not hit, but he does very much hit the Shadow. The D12 and the D6 exploded. And the D6 exploded again. So the Shadow is very dead.
Yeah.
So he kind of does that sweeping action, and he starts with Cobalt, who he swung at first, and Cobalt, goes underneath it, but his big body provides enough of a distraction that it blindsides the Shadow, and she sort of just twitches and collapses. Very, very dead.
Yep.
A wild cheer goes up from the crowd. And there is a shout from the announcer up top. Death has occurred. The crowd will choose the outcome.
He tries. I mean, he can shout that, but it's probably drowned out by my immense roar.
Well, it's definitely not drowned out due to his
Okay.
mechanics,
Okay.
because he's got a mechanical device that he's shouting into.
Yeah, I mean, Cobalt.
Yeah, you're welcome to
roars
attack.
berserk.
He's still making the. Well, you.
Yeah.
Yep, you're wounded, so you're berserked. Yep.
Yeah, when I got wounded
Mhm.
and berserk. So how do I roll to? I gotta do the thing to
Spirit
get rid
roll.
of shaken, right?
You gotta do a spirit roll at your wound penalty.
I ignore 1 level of wound penalty.
Okay.
So what have I got to get to unshake? A 4?
You need a 4.
Okay. Sorry, this dice is hard to read. Oh, that's a 4 on the D4. So 7 minus 2 is a 5.
Okay. Yep.
So I'm
So you come unshaken.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just like try and cleave this guy in half with Covenant.
Okay.
How do wild attacks work? Because I must make all attacks wild.
+2 to attack and damage, -2 to your defenses.
Cool. Oh, that's a good one. 8 plus 5 is plus. You said 2 for wild attack.
Mm-hmm.
15 to hit.
Okay. He has a parry of 10. So that's a hit with a raise.
Nice. So I do my strength plus the weapon plus a d6 for the raise.
Mm-hmm. And plus a d8 for the stone at the bottom of it.
Okay. Oh boy, champion. 29.
Okay. Yeah. So you turn and do that spin under and bring your axe up underneath the champion's unarmored armpit, and he and kind of slumps to the ground.
Yeah, I just like reverse the swing and behead him on the ground.
I'm going to give you the GM recommendation that you don't as a thing. You get to make the decision, but Cobalt is even berserked intelligent enough to understand the concept of a champion of a village or a town.
Sure.
And you're surrounded by people who are arguably unfriendly. And disgracing a champion and beating a champion are very different.
I mean, I wasn't doing it as a way to disgrace.
But he's already dead, right? You've already dropped him. If you decapitate a dead champion in a melee combat situation, that's literally disgracing someone as a thing, because he's already down. So it's up to you. You get to make the call. I'm just giving you the fair GM warning as a thing.
Yeah, the intent is definitely not as a disgrace thing, so
Okay.
I just went to it. The idea was more that it's like a swift making sure your enemy's dead before you move on to the next one.
Right. Nope, I'm with you. Yeah, so just... And that's fine. Like, taking the enemy down and making sure the enemy dead is very much one thing. But in a arena situation, Cobalt would
If it's
definitely have
incredibly clear that he's dead, then
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
he has literally dropped blood from his mouth, that whole kind of thing. Like, he's gone. Cobalt has enough of an understanding. So
Yeah, and I immediately turn towards the shadow and make sure that she's dead too.
oh, she's very dead. Yep. Yep, she's done. So there is a very frustrated murmur through the crowd as a thing, and Ina kind of yanks on Belmir's sleeve. You want to get out of here quickly. And she's like, 10 years just ended in a single stroke. They're not gonna be happy. But like, and there's like murmuring, and you can see that like the gnome on the platform hasn't done it. He's
Oh. Sage is going to try to climb up onto the platform.
okay.
to Cobalt.
Well, the kobold is down,
I'm down
in the pit.
the sand pit.
Oh, well, that's where Sage is going, to Cobalt.
Okay. So Sage goes up over the barrier and lands down in the sand pit. There's another hushed whisper through the crowd. And Aina turns and she's like, so 2 things. You weren't lying. And yeah, it's pretty obvious you're not from around here. And the gnome kind of looks at Sage for a minute and then looks at Cobalt and the dead bodies. A new challenger enters the ring.
Oh no.
And Cobalt like immediately starts like turning around trying to find someone other than Sage.
Right. And he's like, the new champion of the Brass Boar, Lizard Man, versus a tree. And there's like some hushed ramblings for a minute, and you see the tassels get lowered down in front of each of you again.
Just like brush the tassels aside and like I'm walking over to Sage.
Okay. The tassels are hanging in front of Sage, and Cobalt's coming toward you.
I'm like clearly also putting my weapon away as I come towards
Yeah.
you.
I mean, it's Sage is like, yeah, okay, cool, because that's never a thing that Sage would expect anyway.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter whether the weapon's out or not.
Yeah.
Cobalt, you just completely slaughtered both of them.
No. They were killing each other and I had to stop it.
Okay. Can we find Peregrine now?
Peregrine! Just like shout it out at the crowd.
Yeah, you don't get much of a response besides the continuing roar of the crowd and the confused murmuring at
Yeah.
what's
And I still-
happening in their fairly sacred arena pit.
I think at that moment, Cobalt like stumbles a bit and their eyes clear a little and they're like, I could use some of your fire, little one.
Okay.
Elmir runs from the bar to the stage and yells, "Pull the one with the red stripe."
What? Is there a tassel in front of Sage with a red stripe?
Yeah, just one red stripe.
Okay.
First blood! And the bell rings again.
Sage is going to cast healing. To set Cobalt on fire.
Okay. You set Cobalt on fire. Roll me your primalism roll.
It only took 200 years, but we're finally in a place where Primalist might work.
11.
Okay. So you heal 2 wounds, Cobalt.
That is how many
As-
wounds I had.
The fire seeps out from Sage's hands. Flora and Belmir, give me a notice roll.
Eight.
9.
So, you know that, like, black glass ovally stuff that you guys have seen a whole bunch of times? Just at various points around the ring where Sage is, as she starts to channel that fire into Cobalt, you just see small little, like, pock marks of that start to appear in the air. and they seem to be like kind of like flexing to open and then they close, and then somewhere else it'll flex to open and then they close.
Cool.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It's all fine. We're fine.
As the fire like washes over me,
Mhm.
and my wounds heal, I like fall backwards onto my butt, and I said, "No more! I can take no more! I surrender!"
Okay.
It's an awful idea.
So the
You jumped into the pit.
gnome turns, and there's a really quiet hush around the room because Belmir and Flora are not the only persons noticing those rifts. But at the "no more, I said no more," you hear the voice of the gnome through that mechanical microphone-ish kind of thing. "A new champion! The tree!" And there's like strange, somewhat muted cheering since we went from Reknar to this. And it's definitely a backwards slide.
There's like a way over dramatic like wink up at Sage.
Yep. But a ladder is lowered down, and as finally that fire kind of stops, you see the last of those rifts pop closed as a thing. And the rope ladder is lowered down. You see people coming out of side doors to gather the bodies of Reknar and the Shadow. And as you're escorted up, the gnome is standing there, and he's just like glaring at all of you and hands a really big, heavy bag of, if you recall, in Emios, money is not coins, it's little stones. Hands them to you.
What am I going to do with this?
And he turns away. And you hear him. He like climbs up on the thing and he starts kind of chatting with some gathered people there.
Sage is going to approach him.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like just half a step behind her.
Excuse me, have you seen my friend Peregrine? She is an elf and she has a glaive and it is made of crystal.
No.
We saw her enter
She
the
came.
bar.
There's a lot of people in this bar, friend.
Can you make the big noise again and ask for her?
No.
Oh, why are you so sad?
At this point, Belmir has arrived at them and is grabbing Sage and
Yeah.
saying, "We need to get out of here."
I agree, this place is madness. They throw away their own champions.
Okay.
Okay.
Here you go, Belmir.
She hands you a very heavy
Thanks.
bag of money. It's probably the most money you've had in one place in quite some time.
200 years, maybe?
Probably longer than that. Belmir isn't like
Oh.
renowned for being ultra wealthy.
He is not.
200 years and 14 days at least.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Flora, as we're leaving, Flora, I am sorry you had to see that. We thought we spotted Peregrine in the crowd, but I guess not.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't find her. I don't really like it here, though. We should leave.
I agree.
Okay. You make your way out of the brass boar. Where do you want to go now?
This town was like a stopping over point for us on the way to Caramel.
You guys are
right?
looking for another caravan to go to Caramel.
Right. Okay.
And we would like to buy plot appropriate warm clothing since it is cold in Caramel Mill.
We got plenty of money now.
Sage would like to actually look at the city now that they're not paying attention to like just a peregrine's back.
Okay. You notice that the city, all of the city streets seem to like have a slight curve to them. And then occasionally, and you can see one from where you are, you see that there is a large gate in the wall. And Belmir, you know enough about various architectural styles and city layout styles in Emios to know that there are several cities that, due to the Kezrakian Wars, have been built in ring shapes. So you proceed through these defensive rings that are, the gates are offset to try and slow enemy progress. And so you recognize that Einapoth clearly is one of the cities that has been built this way. But you're in an outside ring, which means it's definitely kind of one of the poorer sections of town. But there's a ton of market stuff because obviously this is where travelers first enter the city. So you see lots of stalls and shops set up by the gate. What are you looking for specifically, Sage?
It's less that Sage is looking for something and more marveling at those things that Sage hasn't seen before, because this is their first experience of a city. Like now they're realizing how many people are here and what things they wouldn't have seen before. Like technology would be different, I'd imagine.
The tech is pretty similar to what you saw in Kalishnikov. There's a lot less religious iconography and symbology everywhere. That's a lot more, worship at the altar of capitalism going on. There's a lot of bright colors. The tents are very clearly designed, like the stalls are very clearly designed to stand out with their colors. There's a lot of smells and a lot of noise in the air and a lot of shouting as merchants have hired criers to like call out their wares to get people's attention. The one closest to you that's like shouting directly in your ear is shouting out about honeyed dates and honeyed pistachios.
Are there any Tirani?
Nope, not a one.
Are there people staring at me because I am a Tirani?
Not really. You get an occasional like sidelong glance, but it's very obvious that everybody here is very busy and is very focused on what they're doing. Like, it's definitely that rush hour get to work kind of feel where literally no one else's life but yours matters in that moment.
Sage will do what they can to mimic that facial expression of like busyness.
Of just perpetually pissed off.
Sage
Okay.
will do this.
Sage adopts a resting pissed off face. It looks very strange on her features. Okay. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. You hear other people shouting out for like dried and smoked meats. You hear some food vendors advertising for various things like that. Where are you headed as a crew?
Belmir, have you ever been to this place? I know everything is different, but
It's been a long time since I've passed this way. Plus, things have changed. I don't know what we'll find when we get back to your clan. It seems that some of the Sthra have turned sides.
yes,
So
that is what Tormak said.
but at least no one is openly hostile. So that's a plus.
Do you really think that Sazgamath betrayed us?
I don't know. She was definitely felt hurt that I vanished.
Hmm.
And we don't know. There's someone else's writing in the book, so she got some other herald. But I don't know what she's doing.
How could that happen while you had the book?
It vanished while we were falling through the nether.
Ah, I see.
But then I found it in the cave before Tormak showed up.
Mhm. What about your fairy friend?
I tried calling out to him while we were falling, and there was no answer. So I don't know where Axiom is.
We should find a place to rest. Perhaps you can call on them.
Sounds like a good idea. We have been traveling for weeks.
We should find an inn.
All right.
Is there an inn?
Yeah, it'll probably be a couple of rings in, just based on your knowledge of layout. A lot of the first rings are just mercantile kind of stuff. It's like a shopping mall. You're designed to go further back in.
It's probably going to be like a casino designed so you can't leave.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's definitely one of those like capitalism and the defensibility are getting in each other's way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can find your way back in. You progress probably to the third ring of streets. It takes you about half an hour to move from gate to gate and force your way allowed. And you eventually locate a relatively cheap looking inn. I mean, you only went 3 rings in. If you want something more expensive, you got to go deeper. You only recently become wealthy.
What is in the middle?
As we get further into the city, we'll have more. That's where the ruler of the town lives. And other such things that help
Yeah,
Like
at least
keep
Queen.
the wealthy safe.
at least 200 years ago, Inapoth was ruled by consensus.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
You don't know if it still is because 200 years, but
Yeah.
200 years ago, it was ruled by consensus. Okay. Do you stay in this first cheap inn that you find, or are you progressing deeper into the city?
I want to go to the middle. I want to know what is there. Sage says. Sage doesn't just walk off this time.
Well, miracles never cease.
Belmir, can we go to the middle?
Later. I'm tired. As I have just decided that I am tired
Okay.
and want to stop walking.
Okay. So you make your way into the inn. And it's a very kind of standard desert inn. It actually looks very reminiscent of the one that was in Kalishniketh, although less nice. It's a lot cheaper. Throw pillows on the floor, cheaper grade wood, and those kind of things. And the people who welcome you in are nowhere near as nice to you as those people were. And they just kind of look at you and they're like, rooms, plot appropriate amount of money. Dinner, plot appropriate amount of money.
Yes,
I
very
fish
well.
out the appropriate amount of money from my giant sack of coin.
Okay. You fish out a plot appropriate amount of money. And you pay for, I would imagine, rooms and dinner. And the guy like looks at your bag as you pull it out to like get stuff. He's like, we offer weekly rates.
I don't know if we'll be here that long.
Right. Okay. And he's like, I'll tell the kitchen you want food. Sit wherever. And he walks away into the kitchen. It's like late afternoon at this point. So some food is brought out. It is probably the roasted leg of some kind of large desert lizard creature. And
Desert cobalt? That's a problem.
not that kind of lizard creature. And some like roasted carrots and those kind of things. It's very simple, but it's hearty and it doesn't taste terrible. The meat's definitely dry and kind of tough and stringy, but it didn't cost that much.
Cobalt? How
Yes, that's-
how long do your people live? Do they live for 200 years?
no.
The average Thrall lifespan doesn't tend to include natural causes of death. Natural death is a very rare commodity, especially since you choose not to go out that way. Most Thrall want to go out in battle, but round about 45, 50-ish,
Yeah, that's what I
people
was-
will go out on essentially unwinnable campaigns to be sure that they go out in blazes of glory.
I imagine that everyone when you will have passed.
So why do you want to go?
I need to know what to do next. Where
There,
where my people will take a stand against the Kezrakai.
what if we get to your people and they are not taking a stand against the Kezrakai at all?
Then, then then they are not my people anymore.
Do your scales change color if you help Kezrakai?
Not as far as I know, little one.
Were there always Kezrakai with yellow scales?
Stra?
Sra, not Kezrakai.
There have always been different colors of straw.
Because Cartman, with name I don't remember, said that the only reason he took you was because you have blue scales.
He said that
Grimsby.
most of the other tribes had been re-enslaved by the Kazrukai, but that northern straw, who tend to have scales my color, still fought. I do not understand how they yet live if the Kazrukai are here on Emios.
Do all of your people fight like you do?
No, only the exponent, those of us sworn to fight, to be vigilant against the Kazrukai returning. You would have liked my friend. Their name. Ravine Resplendent. They were a carer. They raised children. They would have known what to do with you. I feel
What
like
do you
I
mean
have.
by that?
I feel like I have failed you.
I did not ask you to do anything.
No, but I tried to set a good example. And yet, whenever my ability to defend is called upon, I end up spilling blood. This is not the right way.
To be honest with you, Cobalt, as long as you don't try to strangle me again, I don't mind.
Yes. That was a very bad dream.
It hurt.
Belmere, does Cobalt strangle people often? Is this something I need to watch out for?
No. There was a lot that happened on Oscus. a lot of mind games and trickery that caused all of us in some way to do things that we wouldn't normally do. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Does it have to do with that book that you said you write in with blood?
Yes, it does.
Have you written in that book lately?
I haven't. How do I feel?
You feel fine.
Is there ink in my inkwell?
Nope.
I'm going to pull out the, I think it was a scale that I was using to write with, or whatever, and just try and write in the book.
Nothing happens.
That's interesting. Axiom was the one that chose the inkwell, or I chose, and he filled it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to figure out. I don't know. I'm gonna have to study this book a bit more to see if I can figure out what happened to the last herald.
So maybe you're not the Herald anymore?
I might not be. I can't write in the book right now, at least.
Did you want to still be the Herald?
I don't know. I didn't like having my destiny forced on me to be her herald, but I'm more concerned about what happened in my absence, which is frankly surprising to me. Something that I didn't particularly like about this. I'm finding that I would rather have controlled it, and having that taken away doesn't sit well with me.
Well, that's interesting. And as Flora finishes up her meal, she says, I'll be right back. I want to go give my compliments to the cook and some tips because you don't have to have dry, stringy, tough meat. There's stuff you can do. And she skips away.
Okay. What do the rest of you do? Or do you just eat in silence and we fast forward roughly 10 minutes to the consequences of that particular set of actions?
For now, nothing.
So about 10 minutes
Yeah.
later, you hear this "Ah!" from the kitchen, and you see a man come out, and he turns and he throws like a white chef's cap back into the doorway, and he storms out and he's like, enough is enough. I've had it with all of these complaints. I cooked for kings. And he storms out of the door. And you just see kind of this like slightly flabbergasted looking Flora like standing in the swinging double doors of the kitchen.
I told him that the carrots were really nice. I was just trying to give him some tips. He didn't have to yell so much.
And you just hear a sigh, and the innkeeper walks up, and you see him just like reach into the counter, and he pulls out a sign, and he goes out to the front door. And just as he walks past, you just see that carved on it and painted in the carving, it says "Cook Wanted," and he just hangs it on the door and walks back sullenly behind. And he comes out, and he has a handful of he's probably got like 6 or 7 of the stones, and he comes and he gives it back, and he's like, "There will be no breakfast service tomorrow." And he gives you the stones back and goes back behind the...
Actually, if you haven't found anybody before breakfast, I'll help, because it's kind of my fault.
Very well. Then he goes and he grumpily sits down. Okay.
We leave destruction in all forms in our wake. Ruining one small business, one cook at a time.
That's the way to go, I
It's
guess.
the champion of this inn, right? Is the cook.
The cook.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Leave no champion unslain.
What would you like to do next?
I still want to go into the center if your legs are not tired anymore, Belmir.
Tomorrow, Sage.
Tomorrow? What are we going to do now?
I'm gonna go to my room and read a book.
Oh, that is boring.
Belmir goes to
Can
his
I
room.
go out?
What time of day is it?
It's progressing toward evening now. Like it's hitting that early evening. People are starting to filter into the inn, only to disgruntledly be turned away when there's no cook to make dinner.
Oh, Flora will go in the kitchen, start whipping stuff together. She can make it way better than that last chef. There's no way he cooked for kings.
All right, so Flora goes to make dinner. What
I will assist Flora in the same way that I used to assist Serge.
All right, Sage. So Belmir has disappeared to go read. Cobalt and Flora are whipping up some fancy feasts in the kitchen, which is bringing a whole lot of additional people into the inn as word begins to spread of the prowess. What does Sage do in that time period?
Sage is gonna go sit outside.
Okay.
And watch people.
Okay. You do that for several hours. And you learn plot appropriate
Progressively bored.
things.
Okay.
But nothing that is plot relevant, just appropriate. Belmir.
Every time someone looks at Sage, she gets grumpy. She puts on the grumpy face again.
All right. Sage is practicing her inner New Yorker. Alrighty. So, with that, grumpy Sage sitting and glaring at random passersby as our middle frame of our book, we will be back in 5 minutes from our break. So we'll see you all soon. Thanks for tagging along with us. we didn't have audio because I didn't click the unmute button in my streaming software. But now I have.
Oops.
So, Belmer's up reading a book.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the last couple passages because my focus right now is to try and figure out if there's any indication from the last person that was writing what Sazgamath's what her plan was and or what happened to the
Give me
previous
a
scribe.
research roll.
8 and a +2 because investigator.
Mm-hmm.
Rat. It's a 4 to a 6.
That will be a success, but not a raise.
We're gonna sit into Benny.
Okay.
Six explodes to a 9 +2, 11.
Okay, so that'll be a raise. So you leaf back through the last few entries. You are able to garner that the individual writing is a man named Xeros, Xeros. And he writes of traveling with the Dark Lady. He writes that he was a small boy on the coast in the northern part of the continent. And his family had frozen to death. And so he stumbled out to the coast and laid in the sand, waiting for the tide to come in to get him wet so he could freeze to death as well. When he heard singing in the distance, he was drawn to that singing, and when he approached, he is said to have seen 3 figures. A tall and unearthly, beautiful woman who wore some kind of hood at all times, who henceforth was referred to as the Dark Lady. There was a muscular man who, despite the cold, wore no shirt. And the further description makes it clear that this is Axiom. And then a small child who had crystal white hair and wore a white dress that that regardless of the wind that was blowing dirt everywhere, never seemed to get dirty. It was just always this crystalline white. And she never said a word. The other two, the Dark Lady and Axiom, both spoke with him, but this girl never said a word and never strayed very far from the Dark Lady's side. The Dark Lady took Xeros with them and offered him a new life as her herald. He does mention that she would sing constantly and that her song was mournful and spoke of loss. But that the longer he was with them, and once he took on the role of herald, that song shifted. He speaks of them traveling through the tundra and the wilds, speaks of them. He speaks very heavily of the consistency with which threats would approach, like they'd hear those noises of beasts or of bandits on the horizon, but they would never come to camp, or the bandits would always pass through, seeming to not notice them. he speaks of crossing the bridge, and said the bridge was the most harrowing experience of his life. And it was an experience that took them almost 3 days to cross the Great Bridge between the continents. But then arriving on the other side and entering the wild continent and witnessing, once arriving there, that she no longer seemed to be able to shield them from people noticing them, and that he watched her horrible fury as it poured forth in what he could only describe as a primal display of power, or the dancing blade of Aeternium. They traveled together for a long time, and it was never really clear what they were looking for. They dug into ruins. They apparently had a very distasteful task of digging up graves. They did a lot of things until at last she made her way to a massive ancient flowering tree. And when she approached that tree, he said that he and Aeternium were left in camp as she and the little girl, who still is only ever called the little girl in the journal, ascended the hill to that massive tree. And the two of them left that day, just them. They returned that day, followed by 70 additional people, all clad in dark robes, all moving with a distinctly wooden gait and almost kind of halting kind of movement. Then he said they all sat at the base of that hill for 10 days as the massive tree burned. And then construction began of the Black Tower. The 70 people who had come down from the mountain with her spread out across the horizon, coming back with materials, and they constructed this tower. There's a long gap between filling in. He was writing incredibly diligently, and then it slows down. Then he begins to write again, and according to the dates are separated by almost 40 years between his last entry and the next. The entry dated 40 years after the entry before states that at long last the tower is finished. And he makes note that he, Aeternium, the little girl, who is still 40 years later referred to as the little girl, and the 13 remaining figures from atop the mountain have had the honor to bend the knee in the throne room of the Black Tower to the Dark Lady. And then you've read the other entries up until that point.
Mm-hmm. Is there any indication that the Kezrakai have commenced their invasion by that time?
At some point near the end, in the last few entries, the ones that you've already read, as you kind of skim back through them, there is mention that she brought Aeternium to her and demanded that whatever the cost, the work be quickened. But that's the only thing that really stands out. And then you see an entry in the book that you didn't see before. An entry that is dated 3 days ago. And it states that the physicians have examined him and his condition is terminal. And when he asked Sazgamoth, he refers to her as the Dark Lady, but when he asked the Dark Lady about helping to select a successor, she patted his cheek gently and said, "One has already been found." And she said it with a distinct sense of joy and relief in her voice. And he writes that he knows this is his final entry, but that he has been honored and pleasured to have served the Dark Lady for his life and for the lifetimes that she saw fit to extend it.
Okay. Fun times. I'm gonna go to bed.
Okay.
It's a great story.
You indeed go to sleep. As you sleep, you dream.
Of course, I'm not done.
You dream of flight. You feel as though you are a bird, perhaps a raven. You soar across desert. You soar across mountain. You soar across grassland and over tundra. You cross a massive stone bridge that is terrifying in scope, as it is very clearly constructed, but spans the ocean. You cross that bridge and cross into a wild, lushly vegetated continent. And you continue your journey, flying over those deep jungles and forests, approaching a mountain shrouded in black fog. You pass through that fog, and as you exit the other side into the eye of that crackling lightning storm, you see a tower, black iron, poised at the top of a mountain. The cloud seems to emanate from the tip of that tower, and lightning crackles around it. You fly through a window, and you stand there, and you see 4 figures in the throne room. You flutter down from the windowsill as the woman, seated upon a throne carved from bone, clad in that same dark iron, wearing a black and silver gown with a hood pulled up around her head, holds out a finger, and you flutter down and settle onto it. And she gently runs a finger over the top of your head. The other 3 figures in the room, one of them you recognize, Axiom, on his knee in front of his queen. The other 2 you don't. One is a woman dressed outlandishly, is the best way to describe it. Black flowing gown with purple and silver, wreathed in black purple flames, with a strange necklace at her throat. And standing next to her is a towering figure in a black robe with bird claws for hands and the hooked beak of a raven coming out from his hood. You don't hear the words, but you know that your queen is pleased. And then you awaken in your bed in Inapoth.
Dark Lady. Other person.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the fourth?
I will message you.
Okay.
Okay. You've all gone to bed. You wake up. No cook has been found. So the innkeeper comes and gets Flora and Cobalt very early to make breakfast as they promised they would. Belmere, you wake up and have a fatigue because you did not sleep very well at all.
Of course I do.
I'm sure there's nothing to worry about there whatsoever.
Belmir, we have a very big day today. You said we could go to the center of the city.
Did say that. We will get there eventually.
Why are you saying it like we will never get there?
It seems that I am the herald again. Maybe. I had a dream. I read a book. The book, I had a dream. I was at the tower that Sosgamoth has built on top of a tree. Really big one.
Well, on tops of the ruins of a tree.
Yes. I don't, never mind. Know enough about Tirani to know where they come from. Their home base, as it were.
Oh, no, you do.
Oh.
You know that was definitely a Tirani tree. Like, but you thought there was only one, and it definitely wasn't located there.
Okay.
So you are working for Sosgamoth again?
Maybe. We're super far away from where she is. So she's built a tower. I don't know what for. There are people there with her that, besides Axiom, there's a child. Wait, there was a child in the book. I didn't see it in my dream. And there were two people that were in the tower with her and Axiom. A large man and a woman that looked like birds. I don't know. And then I woke up and I'm still tired.
Did you ask why she cut down the tree?
I didn't really get to talk to her in the dream. I just saw it. The Zeros, the other herald, said that she and the child went up to the tree. And when they came back, it burned to the ground. And there were 60 people there that came back with her. And then they started building the tower.
People not Tirani?
Not Tirani.
Well, to be fair, they
Well-
were hooded and cloaked entirely, so you don't actually know.
Correct. Yes.
Just
And
making
that
sure
was,
you
you know,
remember.
The description from the book
Yeah.
says people.
Yep.
I don't know if it was some sort of place of power that she could tap into. I don't know why she chose that place, but it seems to be important. Can't tell from the book if she's holding up her end of the bargain to fight against the Kezrakai. But I hope that she is. How was your guys' night?
I slept very well. I'm sorry yours didn't go as well. Breakfast?
Yes, please.
I didn't. Yeah. Did we overhear any of that conversation, or were we cooking? Or
No, yeah,
Were
this would
you-
have taken place with you guys there. Like when you
okay,
guys
yeah.
made a very simple breakfast. You're not doing crazy to order stuff. You made something that could essentially be served out, and then you came and are having breakfast with your companions.
That makes sense. Well, at least then you know where she is, yes?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I know where she is. And I know how to get there. More or less.
Then that is where we should go.
What about your clan, Cobalt?
Is it not the same way?
It's the same general way, but the clan is definitely out of the way. Essentially, you get to a point and then you go really far north or you keep going east.
Hmm. It should not be too difficult to visit my clan. Mhm. I would prefer to do so first, but if you think we should find this tower first, then I will follow you. Like you say, we must know whether she is upkeeping her end of the bargain. If she is not, then I will kill her with the weapon she made.
I don't want you to feel like we're neglecting your kin. And it would be faster-ish just knowing the lay of the land go to your people and then to the tower. But I leave that to you.
When we set out upon this path, I had not thought about the fact that everyone I knew would be dead, as would my children and their children. I would like to know what has become of the animus. And whoever is Hierophant now could guide us. But I have many fears and doubts in my mind. It is unusual and uncomfortable for me.
I understand those feelings. At the very least, we still need to find a caravan to the mill. And we can decide from there whether we go to find your people or if we cross the bridge.
Flora, you said you had been to Caramel Mill when you last were on Emios.
That was a very long time ago, it seems.
How long before us? This whole concept of traveling through time is very complicated.
Yeah, that's what they
I
kept saying
don't-
during Somerset City.
I don't know. I was in the Nether for 4,000 meals. I don't know how that translates out here. So that was before you came. I don't know how long it's been since I left here. But I'm going to assume nothing is the same now.
You can give me a smarts roll, Sarah. If you would like to. Or a common knowledge roll. Whichever you would prefer.
8.
Flora thinks for a minute and gives you a date. The last date she can remember before finding her way into Gunter's mansion. That date, Frito, for Belmere, as he's the only one who would really have a concept of it, is 800 years before the date of Belmere and everyone else entering Gunter's mansion.
Would that put it before the previous war as well?
No. That would put it before the previous skirmishes and stuff, but not the war.
Uh-huh.
She was just in the aftermath of that.
Okay. Where were you from?
Just a small village. A small human village.
That
it
may
might not even
that may
exist
be
now.
wrong. That might be before the last war. I don't have my notebook with me with my notes. It's in the other room. So that might be before the last war. I will clarify once I find out.
I won't delve into it now. That's a small town. Do you not wish to know whether it's still there?
Well, it was just a village, and it was all human except for me. My father was a passing elf who met my mother, who was very pretty, and And then he went on and he didn't even know I existed. But I had a good life. But the other villagers weren't exactly happy with me or what I represented. So when they found out that I had healing powers around the age of 12, I left and I went to a temple to Renera and learned to heal until I left there at 19. So there's nothing there for me. If I could get back to it, if I could go back in time, I had already left the village because there was nothing there for me. My being there just made it harder on my family because it reminded all the villagers that I existed. So, and I left the temple because I didn't feel the calling to become a priestess of Renera either. So even before this, I didn't have a place. But Belmir saved me from Gunter, so I will stick with him for now.
I wonder where Gunter is now.
Don't say that. He'll likely to just pop out and send us through time again.
He's in a Victorian pot right now.
You don't know that.
He was in a Victorian cauldron. Maybe not now.
It's a very odd level of metagaming.
Belmir, where should we go?
I look over at Sage, try and determine if we can sneak away without having to go into the center of town.
I think Sage is overwhelmed enough and confused enough with street layout that by the time you get to the outside of town, she wouldn't necessarily know you were going out and not in. And then you just be like, oh, we got turned around, but we're already here.
Sage is also not really paying attention right now. She'll just go where she's led.
As long as there's no carts for you to jump into, we'll be fine. I'm gonna talk to the innkeeper and see if he knows of any caravans or groups heading towards the bridge or the mill.
While
While you do that, I will take Sage to the middle of town.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
It is okay if you don't have time.
But before we go there, it is cold. We need to buy warm clothes.
Perhaps we can find them in the middle of town.
You definitely get the impression that given that this is a desert, you're probably not going to find them here in this city. Seems like sort of it'll be like that scene in Frozen where he's like, oh, big summer blowout, right? Like everything's way more expensive due to it being part of their winter stock. But I mean, you can take Sage into center of town. The innkeeper tells you that there's always groups headed to the northeast, although they don't usually go as far as the mill. Or definitely nobody goes to the bridge right now. The bridge has started to have nether tears appearing along it. And so where usually there were just like monsters and beasts and barbarianish wild people who came across, now there's like Kezrakai and minions of the nether that come across. So people definitely don't go that way.
Does he know of any other way to get to Scarathos?
I mean, you can go across the bridge, but there are like Ascarathos is surrounded by a massive escarpment of mountains that are like the Cliffs of Insanity from The Princess Bride, kind of as far as anyone has ever traveled around the coast. And it's got that natural fortress. The bridge is kind of the one way in.
Yeah.
Until you've traveled far enough that if anybody's found another way in, they've at least not come back, right? Probably because it probably took them a really long time to get there, if they ever made it.
So the bridge. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, should we go to the center of town, or do you talk Cobalt out of that?
I'm not gonna talk the champion
I'm not going to talk the champion out of
Not
any.
that sage,
out of anything.
actually.
I know.
Okay, so he does tell you one thing. He says that there are rumors that the Empire of the Five Isles has merchants and pirates and explorers who know a way on to the southern tip of Ascarathos. And so if you wanted to travel south instead of northeast to the mill, if you wanted to travel south to the coast, you could catch a ship out to the Five Isles and then find someone who might be brave or foolish enough, either in the Five Isles, or if you traveled further south, you could maybe find like a corsair at Veiacaris who was really crazy. So it's up to you. Meanwhile, as you debate this idea, sometimes Frito is
I'm
muted
so glad that I
mid-stuff.
muted myself because we went back in time many, many episodes to where I didn't know what my name was and I started calling myself Cobalt.
That's fair.
Belmir can't swim, so he's not gonna go for the boat option.
That's fair. Okay. All right. So, champion and former champion. Does Flora stay with Belmir? Does she follow the champions?
I'm staying at the inn until people get back.
Okay.
Oh, it's such a hard decision.
I spend a GM Benny and say you go.
No,
with
I'm not. I'm leaving
Okay.
because there's one other conversation that I want to have with other people.
Oh, okay. So you all go to the center of town.
Slowly, because I have fatigue.
And it also it's also a big old
It's a big
city,
city.
that you have to. You're not going like, oh, I'm just gonna go down the freeway and end up in the center of town. You have to like go in and then walk around and then go in and then walk back and then go in and then walk around and walk in and go back, and it's very slow. It becomes very obvious that as you're rounding, mid-afternoon, you're starting to near the vastly nicer sections of the city. The crowds have started to thin out. People are starting to give you, in your worn and probably dirty traveler's clothes, less than friendly looks. You've abandoned the carts and the tents and the stalls. Now you're into full on like brick and mortar mercantile buildings and those kind of things. You've moved from the dirt and sand roads of the desert to the cobbled streets. And as you pass through one gate, you are actually approached and questioned with nothing of real consequence that requires RP. But you're just asked some questions about who you are and what your name is, and essentially it's like taken down and written down somewhere. There's a record of you having passed through this gate. But as you pass through, you're struck by a very different sight. The buildings are almost glowing in the sunlight as the sun hits them and the light glitters off of whatever material is there.
Sage touches the material.
Okay. It's very gritty. And actually, as you pull back, like you kind of have like a feeling of almost like getting cut slightly. And you pull back and you have just those little kind of like hairline cuts in your skin from whatever you touched.
Sage finds the nearest person
Mhm.
that's not part of
Yeah.
her group and says, "Excuse me, what is this made of?"
Crushed mother of pearl. And they just keep walking.
It's very pretty. Is it the whole layout?
Mhm.
Like the whole city? Every building in this area
Yep.
is just...
It's essentially like whatever mortar they had, they crushed up mother of pearl and mixed it in and just stuccoed the outside of the buildings with it. So they all just gleam.
What sort of faces does everyone here have?
Definitely not as frustrated. They're more like a haughty kind of look down their nose at you kind of expression.
Sage learns. Now I have been to the middle. What happens here?
Belmir and Cobalt and Flora, she's like, now I have been to the middle, and like you kind of like know that there's still several more rings to the middle, but she's satisfied at this point.
It's like going on a walk with a toddler.
Aha,
Here,
we've gone
now I
all the
want
way
to
to
go
the
home.
other side of the world. We got to the park. It's fine.
Belmir's been kind of listening to the crowd to see, or just kind of get a general feel. You mentioned earlier that it wasn't an all-out. This conflict with the Kezrakai isn't an all-out war, and it's more of like very small, contained skirmishes and fighting that's happening. Does it seem like it's nearby
No.
the city, or just kind of all taking place far away?
It's all
somewhere
taking
else?
place out on the outskirts, and these people are too rich to care. Because it's not impacting their lives. Like, occasionally you overhear someone being like, I lost a caravan this week. But, you know, and losses were X, Y, and Z. Like, it's very cosmopolitan business kind of talk, but none of these people feel threatened by what's going on in the outside world. It's
Do
the
they...
luxurious ignorance of being wealthy.
Do they sell weapons this close to the center?
I mean, you can go looking for an artisan if you would like to.
Sage is looking for someone that sells wooden staves.
Okay. I mean, again, you're finding artisans. You're finding like top end, like custom work kind of stuff. And any request to these artisans of like, I just want like a wooden staff is laughed at and told to go back to the outer rings where people will sell you that kind of stuff. But then they tell you like they'll make you something custom, but it's going to take weeks to finish.
It's like growing a tree.
Oh, we can do
Takes
that
a
if you
long
would like.
time.
We can go out and I will definitely plant the tree and we'll grow it. And I have seeds here. And he starts to like produce a bag of seeds. And he's like, we can grow any of these that you would like. And if you'd like for an extra fee, I can weave 2 of them together once they're tender
Oh.
saplings and
Well, that sounds nice.
grow it. What is the,
Sage, I don't think we have time for that. Could we pick you up a staff on the way back out?
I mean, you have a
town?
metal
Oh,
staff.
I thought he was going to just plant the trees. That's what is nice.
Oh no, I will definitely plant them for material purposes.
It takes
Oh.
many years for trees to grow, and mere moments to tear them down.
Or burn them. Okay.
I mean, we definitely fire harden the staves. It's what you can do. You fire treat them. It increases the hardness and the tensile strength. But
Do you think if you burn a tree with Terani, it makes them stronger?
my dear girl, you're the only tyranny I've ever seen.
This is a big place. You should look around more.
The tyranny are dead, dear. If
No,
I
they're
hadn't
not.
seen you myself, then I wouldn't have believed the rumors that were moving through the streets.
What?
There have been rumors spreading since yesterday that a tyranny was in Einapoth, but none of us believed it.
Just one?
I mean, I'm in my 40s and I've never seen one.
Well, I am 214 days old.
Days old.
No, 200 years and 14 days.
I see. I'm very sorry, dear, but I have a great deal of work to do. Would you like to place an order, or...
Yes, can you plant 2 trees, please?
Certainly, which 2 would you like? And he presents a variety of desert-friendly trees.
She picks 2 plot-appropriate trees and then turns to Belmir and says, Belmir, I think he's going to want the things.
And he turns and looks at you, and he gives you a very large, plot-appropriate amount of money. It's actually a largely plot-inappropriate amount of money. That's how large of a sum it is. But we don't have an emote for that.
Someday we'll have more emotes. I pull out the bag of champions cash
Okay.
and dole out an inappropriate amount of money.
About a quarter of what's in there.
That's a lot more than I thought we had to begin with.
That's so inappropriate.
Yeah, so you dole out about a quarter of it. He summons, and like, you guys are like trying to leave, and he's like, no, wait. There's, and like, he
Don't want an
introduces
extended
you.
warranty.
No, he introduces you to like the arborist who will be taking on these two trees as like his life's work at this point. And he like takes you out and he shows you like the oasis plot of soil where it will be planted, and like just this whole ridiculous over the top kind of thing. And he's like, we will harvest the trees, not the entire tree. We will harvest limbs of the trees in roughly 11 years. And then we'll be able to put together your staff, and I will carve it myself or my son, should the unthinkable happen to me. And he sits down and he writes something up, and it's literally like a writ of sale, and he gives it to Sage.
This is the way a true weapon should be made from scratch.
So I have a question. If I come back in 200 years, will the tree still be here?
And he like turns to Belmir and holds out his hand.
Say it better be here.
Oh,
With
no.
this sham that you're
He's,
running.
he's literally holding out his hand for more money in order to ensure the tree is here 200 years from now.
No,
I can
we're paying you now.
I can guarantee nothing.
Come on, Sage.
Okay.
Is there any of our cash left on the counter or readily accessible that I can grab a handful of it?
No, he definitely
Because
put it
this
away
is-
very quickly.
This is garbage.
Hey now, collect 11 years from now.
I mean, let's be
Quite a
fair.
racket.
He's literally
We've done it.
planting 2 trees. He's hired a master arborist to care for these trees for the rest of his life and cultivate them into a single hybrid tree. Like, here's the crazy thing. There's crap like this in the real world.
Yep.
There are people who buy cutting boards this way, for crying out loud. Like,
I will return in 11 years.
and he bows to you.
Sage bows back and gives a haughty look.
He accepts your haughty look as though it were expected. Especially given how much money you just spent in like one fell swoop.
Sage leaves.
Okay. All right. So you all leave, and Belmir marvels at the idea that they just bought 2 trees for the price of a small house.
Uh-huh. For something that you will never get.
But it was a great character development moment.
This is truly what happens when we let Sage off her leash. And do
We
all
can
of her
just fast forward
negotiating.
11 years if you guys want to.
Hey, yeah, okay.
You just live in Idapoth for 11 years.
Well, I mean, we have a
I mean,
crap
you
load of
just told
money.
us we have money for 3 small houses.
Oh,
We'll be
yeah.
fine.
I mean, if you want to hang out for 11 years, that sounds horribly boring.
That's
We'd
the
also
end of
start-
Aeternium Gate, everyone.
We'd start rolling some dice on like randomly contracting desert diseases, death by raiders, other assorted things.
No, forget Savage Worlds, Eric. We want to play soft and comfy worlds.
I mean, this isn't Traveler where you can die in character creation on the last step.
Oh my god.
You literally can create your whole character for like 35, 40 minutes, and then there's a dice roll that's like makes it to adulthood.
Yeah.
All right. So you have
Lovely
acquired a
action design.
contract. Please put down artisan contract for heritage grown staff. And then just write 11 years next to it. Okay.
It occurs to me, Belmir, that if there is no caravan heading where we want to go, but we now have significant funds, perhaps we should be doing the hiring rather than looking to get hired.
You did essentially acquire a 10-year bounty of every failed pot to defeat Reknar.
You bring up a good point, Cobalt.
Then perhaps we should visit someone with carriages for sale, which sounds to me like it might be in the center of town.
No. No need to go to the center of town. Oh, wait.
Maybe we should just buy a regular wagon instead of waiting 11 years for them to grow the parts to make the wagon.
I think that sounds reasonable.
I'm just saying, I thought that was a super cool story point, and I'm being mocked.
Oh, it is. No, it's
I love
super
it.
cool. It's just also like such a racket, man.
I've
I
got
should set
my
up this
artisan
business.
contract for heritage.
There are
Heritage
literally people who
burns.
do this for things like cutting boards and other things, where it's like, I will grow your trees. Like, it's very much a thing. The world
Like
of artisan possessions
people
is
to-
ridiculous.
It's like getting people to pick their own lobster out of the tank at a restaurant.
I've done that. It's wonderful. Makes you feel very special.
To the center. Or the out.
Start walking towards the center.
I don't
AKA the
understand why
out.
you're doing that, Belmir. Oh.
Because I didn't pick up on it when Cobalt said it. Realized halfway through what he was saying.
All right. You get really confused for a little bit, Sage, as they start leading you through gates, and it starts looking progressively less nice.
What happened? Did they just run out of mother of pearl?
And eventually,
Possibly.
you find yourself at the external gate, although you probably will need to stay in an inn because this has taken you most of the day. So the next morning, you find yourself standing at a gate, and you're hiring a caravan? You're hiring guards? Like, what are you doing?
You are muted.
It's Cobalt's plan.
What if we just buy a wagon and join a caravan instead of financing a whole caravan? If we can find one that is going the direction we want to go.
Just buy
I'm
horses?
not used to having a whole lot of money, so spending that much money making me nervous.
No, I thought the issue out of character. I may have misinterpreted, but I thought the issue was there were no caravans.
They
going
just
where
didn't
we
go that
went.
far.
They're going that
Oh,
direction,
okay.
but not all.
So
the
we
way
could, but yeah, then I think. I'll go back. Yes, that would make more sense, Flora. Good idea. We can split off from the caravan when they will go no further. So I guess we're buying a wagon and supplies for the journey.
Okay.
And a donkey,
Yeah, I guess.
or
They have-
some sort of animal to pull the wagon.
They have
They very catchy name.
actually like kind of large, almost like mini Tyrannosaurus Rex type things without the crazy teeth. Like they have big, ridiculous looking heads, and they're like 7 feet tall and they run on 2 feet. But those appear to be the beasts of burden.
We will get one of those.
Okay.
His name can be Carter Jr.
All right,
or
you.
chompy?
Because he has no teeth. It's funny. I like it.
When he has teeth, just they're like he's an herbivore that looks like a T-Rex. Okay. Who goes to buy your Saurus?
I'm the one with the money.
All right, Sage goes with you. Let's roll some dice here. Sage and Belmir. Let's roll. I don't even have a Savage Worlds character sheet. That's how bad I am at GMing this game system. Because I'm the best. Nope, I really don't have one. Give me, if y'all would. Essentially, we're rolling to see which one of you. I'm picturing. So the guy tries to sell you a pair, claiming that they come in pairs, claiming that they're only happy in pairs, that they mate for life, this whole list of things, right? Obviously, this is a thing that Belmir thinks is a racket. But I feel, as GM, and Sage, you can disagree with me if you would like to, I feel Sage buys it. I feel like Sage is like, no, they gotta be happy. Like, we can't have them separated from their mate. That sounds terrible. So
Persuasion rolls.
let's make some persuasion rolls here.
Not intimidation. Persuasion. Just checking because I'm mild mannered.
Yeah, persuasion. And it is literally a persuasion roll between Belmir and Sage.
Trying to out-persuade each other.
Mm-hmm. You're trying to persuade each other and not persuade.
I'm gonna spend a penny
Yeah.
because this will be fun. Darn it. This is no better. I got a 4.
I got 10.
Dang it.
All right.
Everything
So,
exploded.
Flora and Cobalt, you guys have acquired a wagon and have started acquiring supplies and have found a caravan to link up with. When Sage and Belmir come with 2 of these Saurus type creatures rather than the one that you were told they were going to buy, they're kind of this aquamarine color with orange bellies and small orange horns right on the tip of their nose.
Ah, 2 creatures. Good. We'll make it faster going.
Yes. They mate for life. This is Chompy and this is Chompina.
They are both egg layers.
What?
They are both, as you would say, women.
Oh. Well, this one is Chompina and this one is
Chompette.
Chompetta.
Very well. Lizards do not mate for life. That was a lie.
But they will be happy.
Oh yes, company is important.
Belmir is still baffled at the fact that he actually shelled out money despite he lost the argument and yet still shelled out the money, and he doesn't understand what came over him.
The power that Sage appears to have. The bill of sale literally says their names are Dawn and Dusk, by the way.
Oh. I can't read. That's fine.
Right, that's why, like, Belmer's, like, looking at the bill of sale and she's like, this is Chompina and Chompetta. And he's like, Dawn and Dusk.
They are beautiful creatures. You did very well.
You got one on a buy one, get one half off sale. It's fine. You only spent 50% more of your plot appropriate amount of money than you needed to. Sarah recognizes this as the GM's tactic if you did something crazy and got a whole bunch of money that you weren't ever expected to have, and now I'm going to whittle it away so you don't have it anymore.
I've lived this
helping.
before.
You don't need to worry about that. I just bought 2 trees.
It's also one of the reasons I use terms like plot appropriate or plot inappropriate. Okay, so you guys have signed up with a caravan and you begin to make your way out of Inapoth easterly toward the various destinations between here and Caromere Mill. As you travel, you've been on the road for about 2 weeks. You've made a stop off at a small mining village on the way there. You, Cobalt, were expressly asked to not enter the village, as this village has survived many Thra attacks in recent memory. As you're traveling on your way out, in the middle of a night, with the moon beating down from overhead, Belmere, you're awakened by a cold breeze in the middle of this desert. When you step out of your tent to discover where the cold breeze is, you look and see standing there in front of your wagon 2 figures. 2 figures that you have seen before in your vision. The first is a very tall figure dressed in thick, heavy black robes with what look like bird claws for hands. And as you look closer in the moonlight, a raven's beak and face poking out from underneath that hood. Standing next to him is a woman. Her hair is jet black with a single streak of white at the brow. She has strange, almost tattoo-like markings on her face. She's in a black and silver gown with purple highlights. Her eyes are a deep violet color. And at her throat is a silver necklace that gives off a soft purple glow in the dark. And that man turns and he beckons toward Belmere. And he places his finger into the air and he starts to trace behind him. And a shimmering oval of black glass appears. And he and the woman step through. And we will see you all next Wednesday for more Aeternium Gate. Everyone, thanks so much for joining us this evening for this chapter of Aeternium Gate. I've been your host and storyteller, Eric Taylor, and I'm going to do the quick rounds of plugs for stuff. This week, Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Daylight Time. It's Eastern Daylight Time right now. Eastern Daylight Time. You can watch Jamie Collette and Chantel B, along with Sammy P and Drew Wilson and Michelle Valancourt as they start the next chapter in Unlawful Disorder. They're doing it here on Due Respite using the Open Legend system. So join them at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time right here. There is no evening Saturday show. We're doing our offline session 0 for our new game Far From Home, but we'll be back next Saturday or Saturday after the coming one, however you want to phrase that. Then we'll be back again on Monday for more Paddington Prowler. So Other than that, please check us out on patreon.com/DoRespite. This is my job. It's my passion. It's also, that's the wrong link because my link poster isn't working. But it's also a passion project for a lot of us, and we would love to be able to put this into podcast form and do a lot of things like that. But that does require a little bit of capital that we need to earn first. So if you enjoy what you see and want to check it out, go check out patreon.com/DoRespite. And we have pledges as low as $3, and everything helps a lot, to be honest. So thanks so much. Also, you can find our various cast and crew at various places on the internet. You can find Belmir, the player. Belmir is Frito. He plays Belmir. Belmir's the character. It's late. You can find him at Deep Frito, largely ignoring his Twitter. You can also find Sarah at RP Game Beast, largely ignoring her Twitter, but she'll also be here on Monday and Saturday when it comes back. You can find Jamie at Muffin Manifesto or at his website, jamie-collette.com, correct? He is a voice actor and performer. Go and check him out. He does a lot of cool things. You can find Chantel B at Chantel B on Twitter or at wordswithcolor.com, spelled with a U because British spelling. And you can find her on every show we do here on Do Respite, as well as Tuesdays on twitch.tv/Scraticus playing Cleanup Crew. So go check all of those things out. Did everybody have fun? You can give me a thumbs up. Good. Sorry, I really like this way of outroing better. If you have anything special to announce, you can go ahead and do so now.
That was a hell of
I
a
had
shopping
fun.
episode.
Yeah, I had fun.
You spent a lot of money. You also killed a character that has been around for a really long time as a thing.
And you gave me the weapon, man.
No, I did. No, I'm 100% cool with the fact that you killed him. It was a set of choices that worked, and you know me, consequences are consequences, and I'm down. But there's a reason why things started costing so much.
Yep.
Also, I was a used car salesman once, so there's also a
cool.
reason things cost so much.
I bet.
And why we have 2 cars instead of 1.
I was pretty good at my job, just saying. Alrighty, so we'll see you all hopefully on Saturday morning. Open Legend. It's going to be fun. But until next time, I've been Eric Taylor, and on behalf of Chantel, Frito, Jamie, and Sarah, good night, good luck, stay safe, stay healthy, stay home, love one another. We'll see y'all on Saturday morning. Bye, everybody.